Hello, and welcome back to another episode of This Round is on Me. My guest today is Shinjini Kumar, who is the director and co founder of SALT-mysaltapp, a women first fintech platform. Prior to this, she was the business head for Citibank's consumer businesses in India and spent over 30 years in senior leadership positions across organizations, including the Reserve Bank of India, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Paytm Payments Bank. With this kind of illustrious career in finance, who better to talk to about women and money? Join us after a quick break where I'll have Shinjini join me.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcasts Network. We have a special announcement introducing Club Paisa Vaisa, where you get episodes of Paisa Vaisa 3 days before release, bonus and ad-free content, and access to the full show archive. So get your yearly membership today for only Rs. 6.99. Log on to club.ivmpodcasts.com/paisavaisa. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita celebrate RRR's Golden Globes victory and they talk about TikTok eating into Google's ad space, Kanye's low-key marriage, and more. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks to Anupam Gupta, host of the podcast Paisa Vaisa. They list the basics of budgeting that an individual needs to understand. On This Round is on Me, Gauri welcomes Prabir Jha, founder of Prabir Jha People Advisory, to talk about work culture, team building, and workplace atmosphere. And on Simplified, the gang celebrates the rise of EVs, ponder over what happened to crypto, and more. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcasts.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you like our show, spread the word, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Capgemini and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome to the show, Shinjini. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Gauri. It's really wonderful to be here.
So we have one thing in common, which is PwC. So and I saw that you were heading the banking and financial services, but alas, our paths did not cross when I was there in PwC Bombay. But
Yes, Gauri. When I was heading banking and capital markets, and Table was already a legend by then. So that's how I knew of you. Apart from
and then recently I put up a post on LinkedIn about something again, like ranting on about how women need to know where their money is. And someone said, "Oh, Gauri, can you please do a podcast episode on women managing their finances?" And I was like, okay, now I'm going to pin Shinjini down to the chair and make her do this. So it's really great to have you here, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
So, before we talk about SALT and understand what's behind the app and what the app is all about, let's take sort of a step back to understand this dynamic between women and money. It's funny because I've always thought of a lot of women, whether you're from a low income background or a housewife, not sort of in a traditional job situation, etc., as really being good budgeters and money managers, right? Because you have to manage your household finances. You know what's coming in every month, what your kharcha is, what I've rarely seen where they find themselves at a surprised to see that there's not enough money. They tend to know what's going on with the money, right?
Yeah.
What is this? When did this sort of switch to women being bad with money?
It's actually a brilliant question. And let me just take you a little bit back to the SALT story of SALT. And the story is that like you said, that when you thought about money as a PwC employee, chartered accountant, or somebody who works in finance, you didn't think about money as male or female, or you did not really think about the gender aspect of it. as a matter of fact, even for me, even though I came from a very different background, public policy and, growing up in rural Bihar and things like that, even for me, money was not a subject of gender, barring all the microfinance work that we had done, studied cases studies of, etc. And so we always thought, yes, when it comes to poor women, it was established fact, enough research done in the world, that money in the hands of women creates good for families, creates good for communities. And Bangladesh was a very shining example when we were working in that space. So it was a very understood fact. But we never really thought about, apart from poor women, that there was a role of money. And so when Chaitra first started to talk to me about this in 2019
Chaitra is your
December,
co-founder.
Chaitra is
Yeah.
my co-founder and a friend. We've been friends for a long time, and she had already set up a fintech, and this was the time when she was walking out of her first one and wanting to build another fintech. And she doesn't come from a traditional finance background, but she kept bugging me with these questions, and I had no intention to be a co-founder at the time. I was working at Citi, and I had my own job to do. But over weekends, she would just set up these calls, and she would say, but why is it that poor women can get together and save with these self-help groups and change the lives of their families, but why is it that every single middle class woman that I know does practically nothing with the money that they have apart from spending it or whatever? Like, that was her observation. So exactly what you're saying, how did that change? So we said, but that can't be. But then you start looking at numbers and you start realizing, and I was at Citi, right? So I also had started to realize that even for our sales team, for example, it wasn't a priority. It wasn't a priority to go and find women and sell to them, even though it was very obvious from our own data that we had much fewer women than we should have, given that, we were the oldest bank to give credit cards to women. And very anecdotally, I would go out for a coffee with a friend and I would say she would be spending on a Citi card, but she wouldn't be a wealth customer. And I would come back and I would ask, why have we never pitched to this person? And I started to realize that gender is not something which financial institutions are alive to as a proposition at all. So, and when they do, they think of it as a pink color, which is a globally understood theory that you come up with a pink card, or you come up with a jewelry offer, or you come up with a... So while you are in your head thinking money is not male or female, people who are creating products for you are actually thinking male. So when people say, even now, a lot of my friends obviously are 50-year-old men, and a lot of times they do counter, and sometimes with good reason, to say, why build for women? If they are smart, which they mostly are, they will just use the products they are. So two things happened. One is that we started to see empirical evidence that there were just not as many women that were part of either the old age traditional banking platforms or the new age fintech platforms, where things were really simple. I mean, Chaitra's first startup is called Simple. The whole idea was that it's so simple to sign up, and yet she was only seeing 10% women. So we started to dig into the data, and two things happened. One was that there just wasn't enough data, and the data that was there was pointing to lesser usage of certain types of financial products. Okay, not all, but certain types of financial products, typically in the formal space. In the informal space, now to your question of saying, we always thought women were good with money. Yes, of course, women are good with money, because you see them taking multiple financial decisions every day. They optimize money all the time, where to spend, how to spend. Even a wealthy woman knows very intuitively, how to get discounts, how to get bulk discounts or whatever. So I think women do take very good spending decisions. They make fairly good saving decisions as well. But they don't create assets in their names, particularly financial assets. They do go and buy gold and real estate. And in this country, we've always had this, I mean, I could show you the data, but basically, financial asset creation has always lagged physical asset creation. So India is a high saving economy, but physical asset creation has always topped financial asset creation until 2 years ago.
Because you almost feel like if you don't have something in your hand, whether it's a document, a land document, or a piece of gold bar or whatever,
Yes.
it may not exist.
Yes. So partly it's that. Partly it's also the nature of our economy, right? We've always had a pretty large parallel economy. So that is one. But also, as far as women are concerned, they did tend to invest disproportionately in physical assets because they didn't need to take permissions. See, you think about it. Financial assets always required a lot more formal paperwork, signature, PAN card, a whole lot of things that you
Guarantor, nominee, this,
yes,
that, yeah.
that you needed to talk to somebody about. And then when you talk to somebody about it, then that person interfered in your decision. But if you said whether you're going to PC Jewelers or whether you're going to PC Chandra, nobody's going to ask you. You will go and buy 4 lakh worth of jewelry without batting an eyelid. But if you say I'm going to buy 4 lakh worth of mutual funds or insurance, you see the number of questions that every member in the family has to ask you. So I think women were smart to actually go through that cycle of spending, saving, optimizing. But asset creation was largely in that space. Now that began to change. We started to see that a lot of that began to change and we can talk more about it, but also there's generational shift in attitudes. There is a whole lot of conversation around the psychology of money. All of these are also sort of becoming much more pronounced in the recent past. And also access to digital media, access to the way people do finance is also changing. So and a lot more women actually woke up to the reality of being independent with their money during COVID, right? And it's a sad reality, but we all know families that where people didn't have money to pay hospital bills if the male member of the family passed away, and they didn't have access to money which they had. So we saw that all of these factors were coming together. So while Chaitra had been talking to me about it for a long time, it was only after COVID that these conversations became very sort of urgent. And then, of course, I called in Aditi, who's our third co-founder, and we started to talk more about it. And I assume we'll talk more about it in this conversation. But the psychology of money for women is different. The social reality of money for women is different. And therefore, it stands to reason that you need to take that into account when you build product, when you solution for them, and when you distribute to them. So all the three things became very like, oh, it was there all along. Why were we not looking at it?
Yeah, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense now when you put it like that. And I think the other aspect of staying away from financial assets is also the jargon around it and the lack of clarity for a lot of people. But even something as simple as, say, for example, putting money into a PPF account, right? It's just something that which isn't complicated to do, but people just aren't aware of even something as basic as that, which can maybe save you taxes, etc. So I don't understand, honestly, why more women, since we're talking about women specifically, don't have that awareness of how good this can be for you. Like,
This is a really good question, and both you and I are on a few groups where this conversation just keeps surfacing every single time, right? When you see a lot of social boundaries still exist. So it's while I would not like to overstate the fact that a lot more, the fact is that a lot more households now give equal opportunity of education to their girls as they give to their boys compared to, let's say, in my childhood, what I would have seen, right? I mean, in my childhood, there would be a lot of families, and I'm sure even today there are families in India where if they have to prioritize resources to send two children to school, then they would prioritize the son because the son's earnings would stay in the house, whereas the girl would anyway get married and go away. I'm not oversimplifying and saying that reality has changed, but that reality for a lot of people has changed. And because we are a country of large numbers, any slice of population that you will cut, you will find a large enough number for that thing to become significant. So the question that you are asking, I'm just going to narrow it down and restate it to say that even women who have had that equal opportunity to go to the same schools, colleges, educational institutions, compete with the boys, probably do better than the boys for a long enough time. At some stage, they do tend to make choices, whether they are their own choices or whether they're choices directly or indirectly forced by people is not the question, because when you break out of something, it really doesn't matter who imposed it on you. Why is it that they don't exercise choices that make so much more sense to you or to me? And that is a question that is a whole podcast. But if I had to tell you this in the context of money, it would be that partly they make these choices because they have too many other things on their hands that they can't get rid of. I mean, as a girl, when you're growing up, the whole experience of becoming a woman is about drawing boundaries around you. You know that Sita's Lakshman Rekha is not just one Lakshman Rekha. It is the series of rekhas that are drawn around you as you grow up. Because when you are little, you go to the playground, there are boundaries. You come home at this time. There are boundaries when you go to tuition classes. You come home at that time. There are boundaries when you go out of station, the train you take, the flight you take, the time you land, the messages you send, the taxis you ride, the security features you need. Your life is a lot more about drawing boundaries around you, and that tends to affect the way you navigate your personal independence. You still want independence because it's a very core human necessity, and I don't think that as women you compromise on that necessity. But having learned, so when we started to build SALT, because data was so poor and so pathetic, we started to do interviews, and we did 500 interviews. We call them SALT interviews. Many of them are available on our Insta pages of similar people. And we started to see that everybody has a personal story of how they have thought about money. But a lot of this is also changing or has changed for a lot of the younger women. But the interesting thing is that when it changed, when it was different for you, your idea of difference was to be the same. Your idea of difference was that money is not gendered for me. It's the same for the man and for me, and I will take it and I will do the same. It's exactly the same for me. I live the life that I'm the primary earner in the family. I'm the primary decision maker in the family. I've never gone and asked anybody. So I became that person. A lot of the young people we spoke to they were doing all this, but they were also doing it with a very different level of confidence about being the woman and taking that decision. So I'll tell you a funny story. One young woman, she said that she invested in crypto. And we said, why are you not investing in anything else and just crypto? And she said, because if I were to say that I'm going to invest in stocks, then my dad would have a view, whereas he can't have a view on crypto because he knows nothing about it. So that's the assertion of that independence, which comes out in a way. So we are going to see like really interesting things in the space of gender and finance. You just wait and see. Like this is going to be the next 5-10 years of seeing all these psychological shifts and things that are happening. One very simple thing that I talk about all the time is how many more girls are now inheriting wealth compared to they were a decade ago.
Sure.
First of all, how many more Indians are inheriting wealth compared to like our generation? Really, 90s liberalization, we got jobs, we made money, we bought houses. We will have more to give to our children than our parents ever had. But also, how many of us only have a daughter or two daughters, and therefore we are not going to look for the closest niece like they used to do in old families and hand over everything to that boy. So you will see a lot of this stuff changing, and so we saw a lot of those attitude shifts. So I'll just summarize this by saying that one thing I've learned is that women and their relationships with money, is a very interesting subject. It's a little bit like studying the mafia. So because it's a lot of it is underground, the moment you start tracking the money and the woman, you can't stay on the surface of the what's happening in your data and statistics and the white economy. You have to go a little bit below, and then you'll start seeing the kitties, start seeing and there are huge amounts of money. They're not insignificant things we are talking about. We are talking about really good quantities, and then the way they create and operate these trust
networks. It's a different ecosystem.
Of course. I remember I was a very early colleague in RBI, and she would keep telling me, you have to buy PPF, okay, what you were trying to tell me. And then one day I got fed up and I said, okay, fine, I'll do whatever it is, just tell me what to do. And I was so surprised that there was such a smooth, well-oiled machine of a person who was selling PPF, doing the documentation with all the women who worked in that institution. So I realized that this that operates a little differently.
Yeah. It's really funny when you're talking about this sort of almost parallel ecosystem or underground ecosystem, as you said. It reminded me of so my driver, his wife, was part of this. It's not a kitty because they were not going and spending it every month at a meal, obviously. They it was a way that it was
committee.
Is it? I don't know what it's called, where they basically all contribute and then that amount goes to one person every month. Is that correct?
Committee. committee.
Yeah, I think it wasn't as sophisticated as committee, but it was called something else, and I can't
Huh.
remember for the life of me. But I was just like, that is amazing because it was only women, and in a way,
Yeah.
they were kind of saying that here, you take care, yeah, you want a little more to spend this month, but then the next month, again,
You pay more interest.
they all had to put in and give it to the next person or whatever how it
Yeah,
worked.
yeah.
But
It's
you're
a
right.
very large economy.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And actually that's a really fascinating point. But coming back to this conversation again, I feel that there's also maybe this laziness around understanding and breaking that barrier of, oh, if it's money then like, oh, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And there is that sort of mind block, which is not anyone else's fault. It's not even a
Yes.
societal sort of pressure. It's a sort of completely self-imposed, obstacle that they're putting. How, what's been your experience, and what would you even advise to women in terms of how to get out of that sort of, you know, not very positive feeling that comes with having to have that conversation about money?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for advertising SALT. Because you're right. I mean, what prevents you from doing it? I used to give this example to leadership, sessions, but I'm going to say the same thing. You remember that film, that Luc Besson film, Lucy, where Scarlett Johansson's brain kicks in and starts operating at beyond 2% capacity. Finally, she dies at some 80 or something. But she's at 10%. So obviously her brain is working faster than everybody else's. And I always remember this scene where she walks into a telephone booth and she's talking to, I think, Morgan Freeman, who asks, so what does it feel like? Because he's doing research on what does brain capacity, what does it feel like if a human brain starts to operate at this level? And she says, it feels like all resistance has fallen, or some language like that. I don't exactly remember. And then the next shot, she actually walks through a wall or something like that. And I always remember that scene because, a lot of time these barriers are barriers that we have created around us. And so when you will break them, you'll realize, oh, that barrier didn't exist at all. So loads of people believe that you can't be earning more than your husband. Like if you earn more than your husband, it's something like weird, especially if you're taking a decision to marry somebody who earns less than you. But if you do it, nothing goes wrong. And a lot of times I have seen that you need to look beyond your economic strata to actually get the right examples to learn from. A lot of our problem is that we are constantly being bombarded by role models and examples by people that we have been taught to admire or appreciate, who are somehow above us in our economic strata. So I am supposed to look up to somebody who's like, even wealthier or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that you will always learn a lot more when you will begin to look at women who are hardworking women. They work. They don't have all this time to figure out that their husbands are earning less or more. They need to win the bread. They need to send children to school. They're making decisions. They save their money. Whether a committee is available, they'll put it in the committee. If a gold pawn shop is available, they'll go there and take credit. What is available to them, they will make the most of it and they will live their lives. They will make decisions. There is no luxury of not making that decision, man. Learn from that person and start making decisions. And you are making that decision to buy that bag, right? Going to saving your money, going to Milan and buying a bag. That bag you used 3 times in your life. That shoe that you bought that was biting you is lying in your cupboard for 1 year. If you put that money into mutual funds, nobody would have told you anything. It was just your own resistance that somehow you conditioned your brain to thinking that all these decisions are your decisions, but the decision to actually do something with the household finances is not your decision. If a house is being bought, the color on the wall is your decision, but the credit to be taken versus spending to be money to be spent from your saving is somehow not your decision. Why? You just have to make that your decision. The amazing thing is that now the younger women are actually picking up that example, because a lot more of us are now seeing women who have been in that situation compared to what it was in our generation, right? So I think these things will change because they will kind of be, forced
There's more
upon.
awareness of it now than maybe
Yeah,
like even 10, 15
yeah.
years ago.
And mothers will not wish it upon their daughters if they have been through something like that. And like I told you, so the amazing thing about the women mafia is that they teach each other very agnostic to age and economic status. So the trust network of women is very interesting. So you will find that like WhatsApp, right? Nobody taught people WhatsApp, but children taught so people learn like that. And I have a very strong belief that even when it comes to money management, uh,
It's
as long
just
as you make the right product available, and that's the kind of thing that we want to do, right? We want to make the right tool available, that if you're sitting on some 30 mutual funds because people came and sold you, and now you feel, most people's investments feel like a badly kept garden. Somebody came and planted a tree, and some of them died, some of them did very well. You happen to have one garden, but it's weeded, and because it doesn't look good, you don't want to look at it. Most people's psychology of investment is coming from that place, that because so you have to recognize that it's okay. You couldn't have taken all correct decisions as you were making those mistakes. You couldn't have planted all the correct plants, but the day you realize, just go and take charge. I mean, start doing something with it. Throw out the
start
weed.
planting at
Yeah,
least,
throw
or
the
like, yeah.
weed, groom the ones that are doing well. It's as simple as that. So yeah, I do think that it's not that hard, but you have to really think about it. Like most people have realized, either they've never done anything, in which case it's the swimming metaphor, that you can't learn swimming by reading the manual. You will have to get into the water. If you already have done something because your dad gave you something, a lot of people have that, they will tell you very sheepishly after some time, they'll tell you, no, I actually did make investments, but they're not doing well. I did one trading course and I bought stocks, and now some of them are whatever, I don't have the time to look at it. And then you look at it, the portfolio, and you realize that yeah, it's okay, salvage what you can, start today. It's not that hard.
I mean, it's like anything in life, right? Like, I mean, you may not perfect it from the get go, and you have to start, and
Yeah.
maybe start small if you're less confident about,
Yeah.
making those decisions. But start, and but there's a lot more that goes into that decision making. Like understanding risk, or your risk profile, your what your needs are, your short term, long term, mid term, whatever needs are that you need to provide for, etc. I think, when you talk about, like, you mentioned very briefly about how people come and like sell you a product, and then you're like, acha, and all it takes is a good salesman, to put a little money into it. I think one of the big things is, other than the uh, resistance to jargon, is trust, right? Like, trust is such a big part of it. Talking about the app now, I mean, how are you able to build that trust when it's a tech product? It's not there's no human interface. So how does that come in?
Very good question. In fact, the entire reason that financial services immobilizes you is because it is a ecosystem where trust is more important than almost anything else. And one of the struggles that fintech has is that when you build a fintech company, you want virality, because that helps you build
Scale.
brand, that
Yeah.
helps you build scale. When you build virality, you realize that very high virality does not lead to very high loyalty
Okay.
necessarily, because you when you become very excited by something that is working very fast, is because so for something like a payment, for example, I transfer money to you, you get the money, the trust is established very quickly, and we can keep doing that all over the place, and we will become viral. Similarly, if I give you a loan, the moment that real money hits your pocket, you are happy, you don't care who I am, you would still take money from me, right? And because I'm giving you money. The problem with personal finance is that you are giving me money. So your actual moment of truth is not when you are giving me money. Your moment of truth is going to come much after that. So obviously you need to have a very high degree of trust in understanding that whatever advice you are getting or whatever execution you're getting is going to go through, etc., etc. So so first thing is to understand that. And I think because I've spent so much time in financial services, I kind of understand that cycle of trust building. It's not a one day affair. A lot of people actually do care for who's behind something. So, which is part of the reason that people actually want to put your trust into something where somebody is like, in our case, for example, right? Aditi is has been a banker. I've been a banker and financial services person. Chaitra has been a fintech person. So for anybody doing research, trying to understand, so who are the people behind it, right? That's something that does build trust. But more importantly for us, we realized that we are going to use, at least that's our language, that we are going to use visual design and communication as a very important way to build trust with people. So our whole effort in SALT is to give you that ability to do things or tweak things or change things so that you understand that I'm not actually coming and telling you that this one is good for you. So it takes a slightly longer time. People do, I know that people have this maniacal thing about saying, no, don't involve me in these decisions. Just tell me what to buy and I'm going to buy. And we will still tell you that, okay, this is what you buy, but see, these are the 3 reasons at least because of which you're buying this. So I think over a period of time, then if that plays out, and the other thing that we do try to do, which also helps build trust, is playing it back to you all the time. So you made a payment. Now you know that you've got that the other person has got the money. Similarly, you bought something. Now it's reflecting in your account. So if you see our app, there is a feature called the passbook, right? And we are yet, it's version 1. But as you will see the versions coming up, you will realize that it becomes kind of the fulcrum where you begin to see your actions reflected. And when you tell me something and your action is reflected instantly, that over a period of time begins to build trust that, yes, I hear you. I understand you. I am hearing what you're doing and I'm giving you this. So part of that is, so as I said, it's not the easiest thing to build trust. Also, so this is one part of it. How do you use technology? How do you use brand building? How do you use social proof? So we do a lot of these workshops, for example, and they just started. We never intended to do education because we actually started with the belief, like you said, right, that what is the big deal? I mean, everybody's giving you gyan, and there are influencers, everybody is giving gyan. So if you want to do something, just come here and do it. We'll make it easy for you to do it. That was our philosophy. That's how we started. But we realized very quickly that we got a lot of inbound inquiries to say, hey, can you come and talk to our people about this? And it became like fairly significant.
I mean, they want
as
the
an opportunity.
education and the execution from the same
Together from the same brand. So that was one learning for us. So then we've decided, okay, fine, we'll do this. Amazing thing, Gauri. 2 years ago, when we were very, very new, we did these workshops to learn from people because people would talk about their problems, their issues. So we thought, okay, that's our insight because we couldn't do single interviews anymore. And then, we built the money personality test and we floated it and we got some 200,000, responses to that so far. So that was enough data for us to understand. Fun thing that's happening now that we have, a couple of months ago, now that we have introduced execution of buying direct mutual funds, we found buyers from that cohort of people who had attended the workshop 2 years ago without us reaching out to them. We have no way to reach out to them because we didn't kind of, get back to them. So that really surprised us. So the thing is that trust building is a longer exercise. So it doesn't happen overnight unless you are building a product where, I'm giving you money, like I said. So it is not easy. The second thing, which is actually where I think it's an even bigger battle, but we are here to fight it, is actually the doing away with the existing trust structure, which is very strong on trust and very bad on actual advice. So the damage that the existing system, for example, insurance agents who sell insurance products to 60-year-old people with no, qualms about it. Products that are named in a way that, the name itself makes you feel like, oh my God, I'm so safe because it's called Sanchay or Suraksha or something. It's just, it's a unfortunate thing. And it's very unfortunate that how much people save their hard-earned money and then they put it into an insurance product believing that it is going to give them, it is going to double their money. That market is huge and extraordinarily
and unregulated
and
to
a large
large
extent.
Yeah.
And so that I think is the space where this trust story is playing out in a way that we would love to change, and we do have ideas and ways in which we think we can do it. But you are right, but it's not necessarily a gender issue. But yes, a lot of these savers will end up being women as well. So funny thing is, the reason also we decided to build for women, one is of course we are women, we felt strongly that we should do it, but one of the other reasons was that we felt that a lot of women's habits are not corrupted by this, so they can still perhaps understand some of what we are trying to tell them. That's a punt. Let's just see how that plays out, but it is a real
Yeah, I mean,
challenge.
it's going to be a challenge for sure. As I said, because there's no human interface
Oh,
initially.
no, we do have a human interface.
Oh, you
So
do?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we are one of the few people actually that the one of the first people we hired. We are just a 27-member team still, but one of the first people we've hired is a woman who attends to calls.
Okay.
So our customer service only gets automated after we come up with sufficient use cases for a question that she has answered. So she has a
Right.
metric where there's a certain question which after she has answered it a number of times and it becomes a standard question, then she can put it onto the WhatsApp chat. Until then she has to answer it manually. And even
Very
there the
interesting
question goes to her.
technology, right?
Yes.
That's technology for you.
Yes.
Speaking of gender, two questions. One is that firstly, I understand 30% of your users currently are male, in fact. You know, are you sort of shifting from the gender focus, or is it something that you planned for? Is it sort of unexpected? I mean, at the end of the day, an app is an app. You can't really, control who uses it. So what's going on there?
Great question. So, when we started out, we were pretty committed that it will be an all women thing and whatever. Very quickly, we realized that if you build a walled garden, first of all, my co founders were not happy with it because they are smart women. They don't like to be given reservation. They felt that it would feel like a girls'
Quota
college
system.
or a quota system, and that doesn't work. So let's not do that. So it's like, okay, fine, let's not do that. But very quickly, because our first product was the money personality test, which is where 30%, in fact, 35% people who took the test are male. But the way it worked very well for us is when we actually first floated it, we just put it on Twitter. We didn't bother about anything else. No, we had no marketing budget, nothing. So we just put it there. And a couple of friends took the test and tweeted it. And then after that, we started asking friends to take the test and tweet it. And our first 10,000 users were 70% men because the Twitter is also
Sure.
more men than women. Then we said, okay, let's take this opportunity and set ourselves a challenge to see how can we get more and more women. Then we put a little money behind it, and then we started to understand how do you get to women. So in fact, that success of turning it from 70-30 to 30-70 is actually something that taught us a lot about how to find these women, how to market to them, how to, because the test actually takes 3 minutes of your time. So it's not just like a impression or something. It is something which you have
You
gone
have to
all the way
respond
ahead.
to, yeah.
Yes, and you have given some. So that was a very interesting thing. And then we said, okay, now we have 200,000 data points. Let's look at how are women different from men? Are they different at all? Is it something that we have been dreaming of? And then we said, okay, fine. And then the next thing we opened, which was also similar number of men's, pretty similar, was the passbook and the gold. So we said, okay, fine, passbook entries. So we got, more than 250,000 entries in the passbook. And again, we realized that many men were also using it just as women. But for us, the goal is that we continue to target women both in our physical channel and in our partner channels and in our digital channels. We build products that take into account the lifestyle of a woman. Now, the fun thing is that a lot more men of this generation will live the life that women have lived because they will not have as much assets as their parents had. They will not want 35-year careers and become managing director in Citibank or wherever. Their aspirations are very much what girls used to be forced into doing. So
And then the patterns of saving and spending are changing because of this lifestyle
Yes.
sort of shift as well.
Yes, so we actually think that we will have more male users for that reason, that products built for women will actually be better products for them. So it's like, if people were building better sunscreens or skincare products for women, then men, if they wanted a better skincare product, would go and buy that product rather than.
But when you say, it's a product that's targeted at women, can you kind of elaborate on that? I mean,
Sure.
at the end of the day, saving money is saving money, right? So is it about risk profile? Is it that, what's the sort of psyche that you're working with when you say that it's targeted at women? Are you, is it helping women make those decisions that, hey, if you want to be saving money for, your kid's college or wedding or whatever, you need a more sort of long-term maybe slightly more risky investment. Whereas if you want money for a rainy day, it might be a sort of lower return and something that's more liquid and etc. So I mean, why is that any different for men or women?
100%. But what ends up happening is that one is that women do tend to be time poor consumers. So when you show the show the analysis, when you show the comparison, when you show the tool, the idea is to help you arrive at a decision faster. The idea is not to drown you into the detail of how the macroeconomy is doing and take you from there to the, my speculation on gold, because all of that sounds very good. Like if you sit through,
I don't
a
know how
sales
many men
pitch.
are interested in that either.
But you have somebody who comes and talks to you about your wealth. You like to show me some more new products, etc. And basically I do that, right? So I'm no different. But here the idea is that for a large number of people, they kind of have those goals, and those goals can, as you said, can be pretty common. That I want to travel, or I want to build a corpus for my own MBA, or for my child's education, or whatever. So when it comes to creating assets, the idea is for you to know your goal, take a fast decision, and put your money in it, right? Now, women actually are better investors than men in many ways. When they do take the decision, then they stay with those decisions. They are not like, how should I put it? Many of them feel lost on platforms where the whole messaging and the whole interface is built around high velocity. So you will find, like I personally, I mean, I don't want to talk about existing products, but the fact is that the participation of even young women in the existing products is low, because they were built with the idea of targeting the population of users, which is the man who already has 5 friends who are his cohort, who already every day, or at least whenever they meet, talk about prices, talk about alpha, talk about this guy I saw in the airport bus, those buses that take you to the plane. It was hilarious. Two young men, they'd just met. They'd met at the airport, and in the plane, one guy is telling the other guy, कि Zerodha पे नहीं करता तू ये, and he opens his phone and he opens Zerodha and he shows it to him and he says, ये देख, ये मेरा ये मैंने खरीदा, ये वाला ना, इसमें भी whatever 10,000 का loss है. And he was so chill about it, and he gave him that tutorial, like in that bus before we boarded the flight. I was thinking that's what I want SALT to be with women, because we are also solving for that. We are also solving for the fact that, okay, you don't have that navigator. It's okay. You're the first one who's doing it. I'm the first woman who was running my house, taking decision to buy property. It's okay. It will still happen. It will not happen in exactly the same way, because I never had that cohort that was coming at me.
You're kind of on your own in a way.
Yes. So many of these women will be on their own. We know many women. We get calls, and they're so interesting. We just got a call from somebody saying, not a random person. Most of these are referrals, because again, that trust network is important. So nobody calls us randomly. People who call us randomly are looking for like a 10,000, 5,000, what should I buy type of thing. But somebody just called and said that I have this, I'm inheriting money, and I've already got 2 tranches of it, and it's a significant amount of money, and I don't feel very comfortable like sitting with these bankers and making a decision. Can you give me an alternative advice? And that kind of stuff you will find more and more, because this person's trust will be very hard to win for the regular. By the way, today, early morning I got a message from a friend of mine, retired from RBI, and a banker gave him a full plan for what to do post-retirement. And he sent it to me asking me, if I had a view. And I have a very interesting view. And my view is that when you retire, you actually have more time than the banker.
And so
So instead of letting your banker tell
do it
you
yourself.
that,
Figure it out
yes,
yourself.
that you should do a SWP because you need a monthly income. Boss, you have time now. Make your monthly income. You know what I'm saying? But it's not in the banker's interest to tell you that. But it is in my interest to tell you that, because I'm not charging you for, I'm not earning expense ratio on your investment. So it is very much in my interest to tell you, because I'm looking for you to engage on my app so that you can do 100 different things here. So I'm very happy to tell you that just learn. It's not hard at all. Why will you do a systematic withdrawal plan if you can every day get up and see, what you should be doing with your own money?
Isn't this quite contrary to what you were doing for a large part of your financial
Yes.
career?
You got me there. Yeah. In fact, one of the first, very interesting debates that Aditi and I had when we started building was about regular versus direct. Because I came from this whole, long background. My own portfolio was all regular. And so I hadn't even signed up for Zerodha until that time. Whereas Aditi, being the, smart, modern age woman that she is, she does all her, and she lives in Singapore. So she doesn't just have Indian, market
yeah.
exposure. She has exposure to global markets. And so she was like, no, we are not selling regular at all. And I said, how will we make money? Because I'm like, okay, we are here to make money. And then we worked through the business plan. But she said, it is non-negotiable, because if you are taking money from AMC, your advice will be biased. You will never build trust. So that's not the way to go. So, that is.
So just to clarify for listeners, so regular is when you take a commission from the fund versus direct, which is when you're taking it from the
from
no one. Yeah.
Except that we can charge a minor execution fee,
Right.
which is
But it's not a fund linked commission.
Exactly.
Essentially.
So it
it's
doesn't
more,
affect my advice.
Yeah. So it's
to you.
more. But that's always been the case. I mean, that's something with independent financial advisors is the advantage, right? That you're not going.
Yes.
Do you
Hopefully
find
people
that women are having to make these decisions about investing or saving or all of that sometimes maybe without letting, like, doing it on the quiet because a spouse wouldn't, a spouse or a parent or whoever wouldn't approve of this? Is that something that you come across?
I've come across both. I've come across families where the men are so amazingly supportive of women. I mean, I used to hold these clubhouse sessions at some point in time, again, because we wanted to get more data. And we would have men who would come and say, and that those were COVID times. And so people would say that I want my wife to actually know more about money, and I feel anxiety because she doesn't. So can you talk to my wife? Like, so that's also one segment. In Uttarakhand, where I live sometimes, there is this wonderful woman I met who knows everything about mutual funds, direct, regular, fund managers, TER, expense ratio, exit lower, everything she knows. And she's a housewife from Odisha. She studied Sanskrit in her college, and she's just raised her 2 children. She's amazing. And her husband was sitting there, and the husband's the one who earns money. She does not earn the money. But her husband said, if it had not been for her, I wouldn't have been, the daughter studies in the US, the son is doing medicine. I wouldn't have been able to do anything and then, buy the house and everything. It's all because of her, because she knows all of this. And he's so proud, like that feeling that, that face he had when she was talking to me was so incredible. So I've seen that as well. But I also think, and one of the things that actually a woman only told me, that it is very important for women to have private investments. This was a very wealthy woman who told me this. She said, you have to give me something where I can have something which I don't have to tell other people, which is why it's a great idea to have a mobile-based system rather than a RM-based system. Because the RM, if she comes to my house, she will be coming
Visible
from my
to
husband.
everybody,
She will be
yeah.
visible. She will be my husband's. My husband's secretary will set up the appointment or whatever. Whereas if you're in your case, like in case of an app, so how are you going to? She was actually asking me that question: that how are you going to make sure that this remains
Discreet
with
and-
me
yeah.
and discreet? So I think yes, it is important for women to have that sense of, and various different women for different reasons. I mean, I'm talking about relatively wealthier women, but middle class women obviously many times would like to keep that money separately because of their own reasons. One problem that women highlighted that I don't think we have an answer for is a lot of women save in cash still. and they want to convert that into assets, and they actually find it a problem because their bank accounts are not controlled by them. So obviously at this point of time, I just hope that they manage to find a bank account that they can control, because once they can do that, then it's not difficult, because then you can digitally link your bank account and you can start investing, and you can sell, money will go into your bank account, nobody will know. I mean, you can do it sitting in your whatever hammock. But yeah, they do. There are women who do say that I get cash. My family, to run my household, I get cash, and I get a lot of cash, so I am able to save enough. But today I just go at the end of 2-3 months and I go buy some jewelry with it because it's cash. I would like to do something else, but how can I do that? So yes, that is also a social reality that many women do not. I mean, I met some women who were earning, who had their own salary, but they were not the primary bank account holders in their bank account, and their KYC got rejected. And so I was like, why is this KYC got rejected? Because she's a teacher or whatever. And then the KYC got rejected because the bank account was, the husband was the primary holder. So there are things like that. And so when you say, no, why building for women? If you don't commit yourself to building for women, even if 30% people that come on your platform may be men, if you don't commit yourself to building for women, you will not solve this problem. You will straight away move from this problem to the next client segment who does not have this problem, which happens to be men. There are a lot of them with a lot of money and a lot of purchasing power. So, but if you are committed to this, then you will solve these problems. So we are solving this problem. We will add a bank account which you can open sitting in your hammock so that you can start your investing journey. And maybe someday we will even do a tie-up with somebody who can go home and collect your cash and put it into a bank account, and you can start being an investor. So when you set yourself to the task, we are product people, right? I mean, I'm not so much, but Chaitra is, Aditi is. So when you set yourself this goal that this is the consumer for whom you're building, you will keep surfacing these problems and you'll keep solving these problems. That is what we will do with the women, whether it is on the distribution side, whether it is on the on the client side. We are still on this journey and we keep discovering. For me also, it's very amazing because like you said, I had never thought about it.
Well, I can hear the excitement around. I think it sounds like every single day is some new discovery. What's behind the name SALT?
Yeah, I remember I was sitting in Mukteshwar and we were on a call, early COVID days, all of us on, 5 of us at the time, I think, only. And we were talking about the name. I don't know who first said salt, but before that, I think it was Plum, but then it's just Salt.
I think Plum already exists as some product.
Yes, it's an insurance product.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So we said, I think, so for me, SALT was very evocative because it stands for revolution. That, of course, not just Gandhi, but across the world, SALT has been a major. I got obsessed with SALT. The amount, Gauri, I read about SALT is not funny. I watched documentaries on SALT. I read.
Are you serious?
Yes, on our Instagram, you have at least 50 facts about SALT that are not widely known. And but the other thing that really spoke to me is that women's work is like salt. It's essential, but it's undervalued. Salt is like the element in your nature that has to always be in balance. If it's not in balance, it causes you trouble. You can't have too much of it, you can't have too little of it, and it doesn't have a taste by itself that you can palate. You are the person.
I know, I was going to, like, everything you're saying is like seasoning has to be perfect.
Exactly,
yeah,
right?
Always, yeah.
But there is no taste to your life without it, but it cannot be your main course.
Alone, yeah.
So that to me was the biggest one, that you can't have salt by itself. It's
very interesting, and no, it's a great name actually. To me, honestly, before I asked you, and I thought of it as something that you can't live without.
Yes.
I don't think anyone can live without. It's like the most basic staple that every household has, and
Yes.
you can't do without it.
So our mission is that everyone should have some.
What are some of the challenges? I mean, you're an all-women founder startup. What's startup life like for you after all these years in very established, companies?
Yeah, I feel like I have to. One of the things that happened, Gauri, is that we would have never built this company if it hadn't been, unfortunately, for COVID and remote working, because the three of us are based in three different cities, and Chaitra is in Bangalore, Aditi is in Singapore. Am between Bangalore, I'm between Mumbai and Mukteshwar, and but because we could make this work, we spent almost 4 months just talking between us on what we will do, how we will do, what are we committed to, why are we doing it, is it something that, what will break us, what will make us like, not do this, or everything. So we went through all the scenarios, everything. And then finally we decided to give it our best and do it, because even for me, it's after 30 years of learning, knowing everything. But when you work for an organization, then it's, you've worked in an organization, you've built your own thing, so it's not the same. So for me also, it is a very important opportunity to give my best, to give what I know and what I can build, given the technology that is available now, the data science that's available now. It's a very fast changing world. When you are small and nimble, you can do a lot more. And that also I know, because in city it was a major constraint
Move
to move
fast.
with the
Yeah.
technology that we had. And therefore, when you see that the potential, the future of this business, it makes a lot of sense to be doing what I'm doing. And obviously for Chaitra and Aditi, it is, they still have that. Chaitra has done this once. This is her big career move. For Aditi, it's her. So Aditi and I worked together in Paytm. So I was the CEO for the bank, and she was the product head for the bank. So we have worked together before. So we have that great understanding. But she brings that whole, amazing, young, um, challenging attitude to us, to this team as well. So I think the most precious thing for me is the team, the founding team, the founders, the founding team, as well as the team that we have been able to build so far. Because we have this remote work, we've been very lucky to find the right people as well. And yeah.
I mean, you've obviously been CEO of Paytm, and been there several years, and you continue to be associated with the company. We've seen a lot of challenges with the fintech space, right? It's something that's definitely, it's not as sort of smooth sailing. Is that something that concerns you, or how do you protect yourself for that from what you're building?
No, definitely. The fintech revolution in India coincides with the payment revolution in India. Okay, now which is cause, which is effect, I'm not going to get into, but it just so happened historically that the moment of finding that technology shift and the capital all happened around the time when this payment revolution happened. So we've seen that live through its cycle. It's been done in a certain way, etc. Then we moved on to credit, right? Credit started to get chipped, and that has run into some degree, like what you're mentioning also, right? And then there's personal finance. The amazing thing about finance is that it is a lifelong product for every single human being.
Right.
And in this country, which has this young population, where the cycle of for GDP growth, and moving from a trillion to 2 trillion to 5 trillion to 10 trillion will keep getting shorter. The opportunity for
It's huge.
anybody who's doing anything in the finance space, doing it with integrity, doing it with patience, doing it with clean execution, is huge. Of course, anything that you will do will require a combination of hard work and being at the right place at the right time and all of those things. But yeah, I don't think I worry too much about what has happened to fintechs. I think a lot of good things have also happened to fintechs. A lot of good things have happened because of fintech. So when we think about fintech today, sometimes it's very obvious to look at the obvious ones, the big names, and how they're, and many of them, by the way, have done amazing contribution, including Paytm, right? They actually changed the way India pays. But you also then see
I
what
never have cash in my wallet. In fact, it's like a reverse problem where sometimes I need it and I don't have it, and I'm like, come on, you've got to be on Paytm or Google Pay or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but also think about the externalities that revolution generated for so many other things. I mean, one is of course the whole data and footprint and what you can do with it. But even otherwise, the efficiency, that the support that you created for other businesses and things like that. So I seriously do not undermine that everything that the fintech sector has done is reflecting in what we call, crisis or whatever. Actually, I don't believe that as a thing. And even for us, I do believe that. It's a combination of products. See, the financial systems problem is that a lot of incentive structures, particularly commissions structure, has ruined this industry to a large extent. That is not the best thing to happen to any industry. It has stayed for a much longer time in this industry than in others, because in this industry, trust is paramount. Like you change your hair oil, right, based on whatever. If your trust breaks or if something happens, you change your hair oil much faster than you actually change your financial services provider. So it is a high trust industry, so it's not so easy for things to change. But good things will always replace bad things, hopefully.
From all the sort of users you've had so far, what are you seeing as the age bracket that seems to dominate the user base? Is it, is it a wide mix? Is it, are you targeting a certain audience or age group that's tech savvy? Like, what is, I can't see my mother, for example, using this app, but,
Sure.
she would be a potential.
I hope we'll see you
Yes.
using it.
I have downloaded
If not,
it.
auntie.
Yeah.
So I think it also depends on what are you. That's the wonderful thing about a personal finance app, right? You don't have to use it for everything. Like a lot of people, like I told you, currently, if we have 90,000 people, then most of them are just making passbook entries or just playing around with it or buying little digital gold and just buying small amount of something. So or earning rewards, making referrals. So all of that that depends on who is coming, and that's obviously the young, digitally savvy population. It likes the app. It either finds it cool or it finds something useful and does something with it. Then the funny thing is that when it came to investing, which is relatively recent, so it's not, I shouldn't say that there are big trends that are already available to us, but we do find young people just doing it on their own, doing small investments. But we also find what surprised us was this demand that we found in women in their 30s, for example, or even early 40s, who earlier we thought would not be our clients. So, but for them, finding something which is trustworthy and finding something where they have a combination of them doing it with somebody rather than 100% relying on somebody telling them what to do. I think that's a
Control,
market that if we
basically,
can, if we and we
So
do.
who were you targeting earlier when you're saying that this wasn't whom you were expecting to?
It's not that, we hoped that they would come, but we obviously started to build for the younger generation, women who explicitly said that they wanted to not do what their parents had done when it came to money, and while they did have other platforms available, they would be happy to try something that was more geared towards their need or their understanding. So that's where we kind of started. What I didn't realize is that, and I always thought that would be a nice thing to happen, and I think that's happening, is that women who had a relationship manager, for example, coming and saying that I don't really trust what my relationship manager says, can you give me a second opinion? It's like that. And if you like my second opinion, and if you realize that there I'm paying a commission for doing something which I can do, then just moving there, that I think will be a game changer for us.
Yeah, I think it comes down to trust. Like, I think any business, and with money, exponentially more important.
Food also, Gauri.
Of course, yes. But especially with money, it's a whole different ball game. For the women listening, or actually even the men who want to piggyback onto this advice, what would you sort of say to someone who is completely starting out, from scratch, wants to start in some small way, besides, of course, saying, get on the app, but how should they even start?
No, literally, get on the app. It is just so simple. Just go think of it like buying another pair of shoes. Just go put 2,000 rupees into something. Then see, maybe your luck will be the worst. You would have bought it on a day after which the market will tank, and you will see that your 2,000 rupees have become 1,500 rupees or 1,000 rupees. That's okay. 500 rupees is the price that you paid for this learning. When it will come back up to 2,500, that's the day that you will realize that, oh, you made a good decision. So make those decisions. A lot of people, actually, women in particular, told us that they don't get started because they don't know how much can they save. So we said, okay, fine, here's the passbook. Start tracking your expenses, income, investments, savings. So give yourself that engagement with money. It's a cool place. If nothing else, just open it once or twice a day, do a little bit of here and there. We also will keep making new things. You'll find something new. I think people need to, if you have done nothing else, just buy some mutual funds. One of the things always the more important thing in life is to know what not to do, right? Like I walked here this morning and I didn't have kajal, and I said I'm going to put kajal, and Gauri Devidayal convinced me that I'm not going to put kajal. So important thing in life is to know what not to do. Don't go and do FOMO investing. Don't go and buy stocks because everybody seems to be making money on stocks. Don't go and buy crypto because your dad won't have an opinion on it. Maybe do that, but if you do that, then be prepared that you're doing that for the learning or for the kick. So I always tell people that when you start investing, know what is your purpose. You will invest for long term. You'll invest for protection. Your money should be protected. You will invest for growth always. You should have some money that you should put into growth. It's a bet, but this country will grow. Life will give you opportunities to become wealthy. You will miss it out if you're sitting fully on safety. So you'll invest for safety. You will invest for growth. You will invest for passion. You will want to live in a good house. Please go ahead and buy a house. Don't buy 3 houses. Don't buy even the second house. But buy that one house. Keep it well. So put your money into where your heart is. Invest into, a business that you want to do or whatever. Do that. And in the end, always invest a little bit for fun. So if you think crypto is looking, the whole world is doing, keep a little bit of money, but be prepared that you might just lose it. But if you don't engage at all, if you don't have that framework at all in your mind and you're just doing nothing is not an option, actually.
I think that is a great note to to get someone going. I think that's great advice, and it's like with a lot of things, right? Like just start. That's what I keep telling myself for my workout. So I think it's the same thing for money. But yeah, I agree completely, and it's really it's so rewarding when you do break those barriers of which are a lot of them in our head, like we've been saying, and you start understanding it, and then you do it with in a more informed way than maybe when you first started out. But the point is start. So great. Well, listen, Shinjini, before we go, I know that you're an avid bookworm. In fact, you have started something called you're started or you're part of the Indian Novels Collective.
Yeah, I started.
You started it.
Yeah.
So tell us some. And I attended your first of hopefully many conversations with an author recently at Kitab Khana, which was wonderful. So any great books you've read in the recent past that you can just diverting from the all the money talk for a second, tell us some good books you've read.
Oh, I have this really weird reading habit, when I feel emotionally disturbed about something, I will go back and reread a book that I would have read in the past, and that would have these associations of nice, happy times or peaceful times.
Happy times at the RBI. Said no one
Sometimes,
ever.
yes.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, the happy times when your kids were young, you had a vacation, you sat there, you read. So yeah, I do sometimes just go back and read like a Vanity Fair. I read, there are some books that I'll keep reading again and again. So I was reading, it's not a happy book or a happy writer, but I was reading Lorca, his plays actually recently. I don't remember what intrigued me to plays. Yes, I had an idea to write a play. And and therefore, in that process, I was reading a few plays. I was reading Ibsen and I was reading Lorca. So, sorry, this is all going to sound very intellectual, but you have to forgive me because I was an English literature student. So my house and my husband is a professor and a poet. So my house is filled with books. And many of my books are actually old books because. But then on the other hand, I also need to read more about what I do. So, of course, I have done the drill of reading The Psychology of Money, the money, Let's Talk Money, all the money books that have come out. Also, we have a lot of friends who are authors, so they write. So, my husband just did this poetry book, which is very nice. So, I've been reading a lot of poetry. I like regional literature a lot because that's why the Indian regional, I mean, we usually don't use the word regional, we always say Indian literature because those are Indian languages. So I read a lot of translations of Indian books. So recently I was reading this Nabanita Devsen's book translation, The Acrobat. So my books are very eclectic. Nothing that I'm trying to think of a book that I read that could be more fun. I wish it was. Yeah.
So you haven't read Spare?
Tell me, what is it?
I'm just kidding. It's Prince Harry's new autobiography. I'm just kidding.
Okay, but I'll tell you something, Gauri. I'm not as boring as I sound. My books are my books may be staid, but my films are very avant-garde because
Okay.
my son is now the person who
A
knows
filmmaker,
everything
yeah.
about films. So I watch like really cool films.
Tell us
They are
some.
not available on Netflix or any place.
So we can't find them anywhere, but we have to figure out about what.
I just watched something called Primer. It was an extraordinary film made on some budget of some $500 or something. It's an extraordinarily great
Okay,
film. Yeah.
we'll
So
have
I've been
to
watching.
find this.
I watch like very, very good films. Yeah,
Amazing.
Thanks to them.
You've had a stellar career, and of course, it's nowhere near finished. And of course, wish you all the very best with Salt. But what would you say, has been, and you've been literally at the top. You've helmed at every place you've been at, whether it's Citi or Paytm or even PwC, RBI. An incredible story, incredible journey. What would you say is the best investment you've made? One of the best investments you've made?
I think my best investment was in myself, making myself bold, giving myself courage to not think about everything that will go wrong, but to break out of things that I did not like. I think if I had not done that, I would have still been a successful professional because by chance, I cruised into RBI because I wrote one exam and I walked in and I would have done well. But the fact that I taught myself and I can only give myself credit for it because it's not like I was living with people that had that anything went wrong at any point of time that somebody would say no, why are you doing this, or why are you not doing something easier or lighter or bigger or whatever. It was me, and I promised myself I will never get bored again, and so I walked out. I think that was a very big investment in me, going to the US to study. I mean, we didn't have money, but we didn't even have money to buy tickets. We actually borrowed. We got scholarships, and I had admission to Columbia and Austin, but I went to Austin because Austin had a better scholarship than Columbia, whatever. And I took my son with me. I think I learned a lot raising the child, working. I had a research assistant's job. So I think I learned a huge deal through that experience. So I think investing in that program, in that degree, was a big one. Investing in people. I have an extraordinary set of friends, and I do have this weird ability that if I meet somebody, then within 30 minutes, I know if this person will be my friend or, will stay with me or drop off. And I'm really grateful for that. I think those were the best investments. After that, what money could buy, I think the house in Mukteshwar has been a great investment because, again, I don't even care about financial terms, but in terms of my well-being, my family's well-being, that's been a very good investment. In terms of financial investment, I must tell you this, Gauri, I started to invest only at 40 because that's the only time that I had surplus money. Before that, I used to work. I used to be this person who said, God has to put a suitcase of money in my house if he wants me to be rich. Otherwise, I'm happy being poor. So, but when I started to invest, I went all in equities, mutual funds, because I always had restrictions on trading and stuff like that because my jobs were always like that. And but the moment I figured out this whole thing about debt and equity and insurance, that's the only thing you need to understand. What does insurance really do to you? What does debt really do to you? What does equity really do to you? I did put some money in debt, but it was not a lot. But I think that made me financially independent as well because those years were good years. That money was well deployed, so that was good. I did not listen to too many people. I
Love
think.
that.
I think lots of people tried to tell me that given that I was, educated, I understood this, that, and the other, what I should do this, I should do that. I was like, this is what works for me. This system works very clean for me. I will do this. I did make some wrong decisions. I do know that I made a few really wrong financial decisions. I bought a house in JP in Delhi, which I never will get the money on, or the house or whatever. I did buy a pension plan, which I now think that's why I tell everybody, when you retire, you will have time. Do not buy a pension plan if you know anything about money. At the time, I was so busy with my life. I used to think, oh my God, I don't have time to take a decision. Let's just do this. We are selling it to our clients. Let me also buy one. So just happily went and bought one. And now I tell myself, what was I thinking? I could have just made more money with this money if I had managed it myself. But yeah, but it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I took a decision. It's there. It's fine.
I think it's the attitude that matters. So that's great advice. And finally, what's your message to other startup entrepreneurs now that you are one yourself?
That's a very difficult one, Gauri, because I know that the world of startups is very different from the world that I come from. So I have like a huge amount of humility in being one. I also don't think I would have been able to do this without Aditi and Chaitra. I definitely think they have a lot more of this startup founder attributes, attitudes, and skills than I have. But learning every day is definitely one that because when you are a startup, essentially you are targeting, a set of clients who in a different way. So people either have been spoiled by a different type of market as in our case, or they have never they have never seen that thing that you are trying to do. So I think it's very important to interact and engage with a lot more people. So for me, learning something every day is very, very important. I mean, I do a lot of road trips. I actually deliberately lose my way and go into some side place to just interact with people and understand
Yeah.
how people actually use money, what do they do with it, etc. So I would say for me that is the second thing that is very, very important is having a value system. I think organizations really don't realize this. You cannot retrofit culture. You cannot, you have to build it every day. It's not easy. It's not easy even for me. I mean, I can give all this gyan, but literally it's not easy for anyone. But what I do know does not work is that when you are at a certain stage, you tell yourself, okay, fine, we'll do anything to get to the next stage. And when we get to the next stage, then we will clean up and we will become somebody else. You will not become somebody else. If you will become who you will become from day one, and you will have to keep, of course, we'll all make mistakes, but your intent has to be very, very clear if you want to build culture, that you will do this on a ongoing basis, not be able to retrofit it. I think those two things is what I would say.
Wise words. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the show, and I really, really wish you the best with the app and your new avatar as a startup founder.
Thank you.
And I will continue to give my feedback on the app and as a user for
Thank
sure.
you so much. Thank you. Lovely talking to you, Gauri. Always such a pleasure. I'm so glad we did this.
Me too. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm a firm believer of women taking charge of their own finances, and I really hope that this conversation today inspires you to do the same and start in some small way. I hope you enjoyed tuning in. I look forward to hearing your feedback on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or wherever you can find me.